So, I'm about to have a really, really bad take. I like Need for Speed Undercover. Not above Most Wanted, or Carbon, or the Underground games, or Porsche Unleashed, or Hot Pursuit 2, or that one Underground game on the PSP, or most of the Black Box era Need for Speed games. But bring up Undercover to anyone interested in the franchise, and you will get one of the following responses. Oh, that game is boring. That game is so broken. That game was ugly. What the hell is Undercover? Undercover was an unfortunate nail that would lead to Black Box's coffin. Barely anyone remembers it anyways. So what happened? And why is my intro different? Back in the years of 2005 and 2006, Most Wanted and Carbon released to the world, with the former becoming an icon in gaming. With its fantastic sense of speed, incredible handling, selection of cars, beautiful setting, banger soundtrack, customization, memorable, for better or worse, characters, and the insane cop chases, it comes to no surprise that Most Wanted was the one Need for Speed that nearly every gamer played, or at the very least, heard about. For a yearly released racing franchise, Most Wanted was a momentous critical and commercial success, with a universal chant demanding more of this. Given the time, Black Box would have most likely pushed further and further to enhance the systems that made Most Wanted brilliant. But being on a yearly release schedule, this would be a near impossible task. For every one new feature or dynamic introduced, something had to be cut. With Carbon, for example, new features included a new map, the introduction of autosculpt, crew abilities, and new race events such as Drift and the Canyon Toge races. But what was missing was the drag races, police helicopters, and story elements, to name a few things. Missing features is an unfortunate side effect with a yearly release schedule, and there isn't really much of a remedy other than pushing back the launch date. Back in 2006, however, EA had a different approach. To keep with the yearly release schedule for Need for Speed games, EA decided to divide Black Box into two separate teams. One team would work on the 2007 title, Pro Street, which focused more on a semi-realistic take on street racing, whereas the other team would work on the 2008 title, Undercover, focusing on the arcadey and cop chase style races akin to Most Wanted and Carbon. Easier said than done, especially when it comes to game development. Black Box was already a stretched-thin studio, having been tasked with other projects, with one of them being Skate. So the already divided team was going to be divided yet again. You can do that, you can cut a pizza further, but how far can you go before it becomes a problem?
It's enough slices!
Vision was another issue. Undercover was going to be the street racing game, but Pro Street was also a street racing game, except it isn't. Pro Street focused on city circuit style racetracks held by major corporations. In essence, a fictional X Games held race event. And reception didn't help either. Even though Pro Street was being marketed as such, it just wasn't what people wanted. People wanted this at the time, not this. I've never actually played Pro Street, maybe someday, not on PC though. From what I've read, finding a legitimate PC copy is as close to literal hell as possible. But maybe someday on console. Wait, what was I talking about originally? Oh yeah, Undercover. So with a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a team working on a follow-up to Most Wanted and Carbon, it was unfortunately bound for failure. It's immediately apparent that Undercover went through the ringer. Just in visuals alone, Tri-City looks worse than either Rockport or Palmont. Sure, Rockport is as brown as any other game from the mid to late 2000s, but that was kind of the point. The city was a dilapidated, Detroit-inspired area, with the cars you drove and raced against being the main source of any color that wasn't a flashing light bar. This, however, it's like when Nicholas Angel was blinded by a teenager's braces. The overexposure and bloom can be blinding in some areas, yet it's toned down in others. It's quite inconsistent. There's also tons of pop-in, really bad spawns for traffic and cops, and God, the flickering. You can even be purely blinded by the sun at times. Even the handling model feels off. It's similar to Carbon and Most Wanted, but there's something very floaty about it. Sometimes the car takes a corner fine, but then there are times where exiting the same corner makes the car slide around for extended periods of time. It's as if the car is driving through ice, or if the tires became overheated. What could most likely be the blame is the twitchiness of controller support. On PC, there have been rumblings that while there is controller support, for some reason modern Xbox controllers have a weird sensitivity bug. That isn't the only issue with controller support, but that's the main one. There's also an overall disregard for the open world. There are part shops, but why go to them when you can do all your shopping and customization in the pause menu safe house, which is the only safe house. No longer can you dive into a safe house to instantly end a pursuit when out of sight. You'll just have to hide. And for the race events, just press down on the D-pad and you'll be thrown into a new event. Though you can choose the events you want to do through the map screen, the autopilot in me just uses the D-pad. There's another issue when it comes to hiding spots during a police chase. For some reason, they're very... This is a common trend, so don't worry about it. And the last major issue is the story. It's a spectacle, either in a good way or in a bad way.
6 p.m., Old Cutler Road by the drive.
Why does he hold his fucking...
We'll get to it. So, with all the issues laid out, and in reality, that's only some of the issues, is Undercover a bad game? Yes, it absolutely is. But it's much farther from the worst. Despite all the issues it has, and yes, there is a ton of issues, when Undercover shines, it really does shine. The layout of Tri-City is massive and has varying terrain that keeps the racing fresh and thrilling. From the tight streets in the city littered with alleyways and construction yards, to the wide open spaces, hills, and coastal highways found in the north. Tri-City is very fun to drive around. There are so many places and shortcuts to explore and utilize, it makes the racing even more fun. There's also a wonderful yet odd selection of cars that you can modify. There are your usual tuners and muscles like 370Zs, Supras, Chargers, Mustangs, and things like that. But there are some oddities such as the Corvette Stingray, like the original Corvette Stingray, Pagani Zonda, a classic and modern Shelby, and Bugatti Veyron, all of which are fully customizable. Autosculpt returns, now being applicable to all parts. A revamped vinyl editor allows for more creative designs. And the tuning menu from Carbon returns for easy and understandable tunes for whatever you desire from your car. I was worried about the AI in the beginning. Sometimes I had a 30-second lead in a stock Nissan 240X. But then they do start to kick it into gear, making the battles for first intense. The AI is also much more aggressive. They will bump, shove, and even try to spin you out, though they can make some mistakes or even get lost.
What? Really?
Circuit, sprint, and checkpoint races return, but the drift events are gone. Probably for the best when it comes to this handling model. There are two new events that, as far as I know, have yet to make a return to a future game. There's Outrun, which is a free-form 1v1 race where whoever is in the lead makes the path. It's actually a returning event from Underground 2. Whoever leads till the end of the time limit wins. with the time limit resetting if a pass happens. It's not bad and can be intense with the presence of cops, but it can also be cheesed by taking absurd corners that confuse the AI. The other new event is highway duels. Not as stylish or as intense as the Toge races, these races involve two cars dueling for first on an overly crowded highway. There's a reason why the game defaults to the bumper cam. Traffic will come at you fast, and if you don't react, you're done for. First to stay ahead or get a certain distance wins. The intensity is only heightened with the music. It's very much inspired by the Canyon Battle music Trevor Morris composed. But Paul Hanslinger did a pretty admirable job. Who can hate on these drums? The overall soundtrack isn't necessarily the best. A lot of the songs feel like they come directly from the stock music library. It hurts, especially during the police chases, because it's trying so hard to be Paul Linford's score. But it simply can't. Where I think it sounds better is in the quieter moments in the game. In the garage or in the map, there are these quieter songs that sound so much more interesting, like a calm before the storm. There's a certain mood in these quiet moments that the instrumentals and the licensed music goes for. It's moody, but it's not in your face. It's abstract.
And when you have artists like Nine Inch Nails or Pussifer in the background, it creates an atmosphere of focus for you to design the street machine of your dreams.
And when you hit the streets and race, the soundtrack switches over to a mixture of dance, electronic, rock, and even some Latin music. Some of the songs are irritating, and yet there are some that work so well. Though Daddy EA did have to step in when it comes to censoring. I don't think it ever got as bad as Safari Song in Forza Horizon 4, but why is Goddamn so heavily censored when there's already mild language in the story? And why is Recoil's Want in the game? It's a great song, and it fits well with the game's themes, but it's a song heavily about drug use, abuse, even suicide, and all of it is uncensored. EA Games, censor anything, or nothing. You know what, I don't care, I'm on break! Since we're on the topic pertaining to sound, the overall sound design in Undercover is pretty great. There's something very meaty about these engine notes. The stock 240X in the beginning sounds as if it's ready to fight. All of the cars do.
Shoot now northbound. Now northbound.
Sunset Hills, be advised, code 3 pursuit in progress. Currently northbound on Interstate 85. Call to be handled on Channel 2. Suspects in a blue Pagani.
Even the ambience of the locations brings more life to the game. And what's the big secret that makes the game sound better? Just a little bit more reverb and echo. When going back to Most Wanted or Carbon, that little adjustment makes a significant difference. Of course, the real fun being the police are back. Cop cars are bigger and stronger than before. Even the Civic class cop cars tower over your nimble sports car. And they hit hard. They will shove, bash, and force their cars to do whatever it takes to slow you down. It feels like a genuine upgrade to the formula, and if and when they arrest you, it's still bonkers. These guys still harness so much rage and anger against you. But then you remember that this is Undercover, and there is some weirdness and letdowns here too. For the previous iterations, the police drove American cars because the games took place in fictional American cities. They drove the four-door sedans, then the Pontiacs, Corvettes, and the Jeep Grand Cherokees, or Rhinos. In Undercover, they drive the four-door sedans, but then the state troops have these. They look like a modern Camaro, but then they have the face of a Mustang, Mustaneros, Custangs, but it also looks like a Challenger, so Mustangers? You know what, I'm never gonna say that word ever again. From there, they then get Nissan GTRs, Porsche 911s, and then the Jeeps. Unless Tri-City is supposed to be an American version of Dubai, I'm not buying it. What also doesn't make sense is the heat meter. The heat meter in the past easily told the player what kind of fight the police were going to put forth. At Heat 1, it was just cops chasing you. At Heat 2, they throw in the roadblocks and faster cars. At Heat 3, they throw in faster cars, more units, and more roadblocks. Heat 4 included more cops and faster cars, a helicopter, and spike strips. And lastly, in Heat 5, you had Corvettes, more strike strips and roadblocks, more cars, and now the helicopter will embrace the code of the Bushido. The heat meter in Undercover isn't really that relevant anymore. The types of cops you deal with depends on the progression of the story. At the end game, you can get Federal Porsche and Jeep Patrol on Heat Level 1. But the worst part about the police is that if you get into a long enough chase and the cops lose sight, they will simply give up.
I want every single unit after the guy.
Everyone?
Everyone!
Looks like this guy will keep running forever. If we can't get him contained, we should just let him go.
At least there is some humorous absurdity in the story.
Very dangerous.
The game ends in one of the most bonkers and completely left field ways. I can't wrap my mind around it. Take this for a premise. You are an undercover officer for the Tri-City Bay Police Department. Your skills have garnered the attention of FBI agent Chase Lynn. She's looking for something, and she brings you on to track down a certain criminal ring involved in car smuggling to track it. You need to build trust with these criminal networks by doing some dirty work. Not just racing, but stealing cars and smuggling goods. As you work your trust into the criminal factions, you learn that one of the gangs you worked with stole a particular car from an international criminal syndicate. Your character's love interest Carmen tells you that this car has something important to the Mafia, but she doesn't know what. You then get a call from Mafia member Chow Wu, informing you that they kidnapped Chase and demand the car back in exchange for Chase. You do this, and the twist is that Chase has been working alongside Chow for some time. Only then, Chase kills Chow, sets you up for murder, and steals the car, leaving you to deal with the TCBPD. In theory, this sounds like a pretty good idea, Being an undercover officer is a pretty decent idea for an NFS story. It's been theorized before, so seeing a game that hardline confirms your character being an undercover cop is great. The issue, however, is that, well, it's dull and messy. Yes, the live-action cutscenes are back, but there's no cheese. Why do people remember Ronnie, Darius, Mia, Nikki, Razor, and Cross? Because their screen presence is so damn memorable. Chris Williams devours the screen because of how charming yet despicable he is. He's a character you love to hate. What does Maggie Q do? I mean, she has this cool apartment, I guess. She also has boobs. But that's not character. She doesn't do anything other than sound bored.
We need to take them all down. I thought you would have understood that by now.
Yeah.
No one else sticks out either. Not Lieutenant Keller, not Cameron, the gangs you work with. The only character I can remember is Nickel. Only because his name is fucking Nickel. The apparent thing that happened is that most of the budget was blown on Maggie Q's contract, leaving scraps for everyone else. Tone is another issue with the story. Now, I'm not saying that previous Need for Speed stories were the pinnacle of storytelling, but they were consistent. Undercover is really trying to be CSI Miami, a noir set in a sunny metropolitan area. But one has Horatio and the other one has Chase. And despite the overall seriousness of the situation, how it plays out is absolutely bonkers. There's a mission where you have to return a stolen car to a gang's hideout. Right when you get to the hideout, the police surround you, with several of them appearing from the hideout.
Don't worry, the police are in my pocket.
Bribed the entire police.
It was easy.
Oh, don't worry, I got more than that. There is a series of carjacking missions that take place in the same shipping yard, the same one with all the murderous mafia members. Did they not try to amp up security? There's a mission where you steal a McLaren F1 from a famous professional race driver at his mansion. But then a few missions later, that mansion now belongs to the mafia leader? What? There's the missions where you take out car smuggling gangs. Why does your character have to do this? Everyone has a radio or phone. As soon as you start attacking, wouldn't they just radio and put a massive red flag on you? I get that there isn't much leeway in writing this scenario, but couldn't your character grab a specific vehicle, like, I don't know, a cop car, and take out the gangsters, and not just the car that you use for racing? The best example is how this story ends. When you deliver the particular car to the Mafia in exchange for Chase, it turns out that Chase has been working alongside the Mafia this whole time. Only then for Chase to betray the Mafia as well, and because, I don't know, the bloom and flickering that's been saturated in my head, Chase somehow blames you for the murders of the Mafia members, as well as the gang members you took out for arrest? And then she gets away without anyone noticing? You flee the scene where the police surround you and chase you, and then Lieutenant Keller calls you and says, "Oh, I know you're innocent and all, but I can't call out the police. There's too much paperwork, and, I have to lift the pen. And, well, sorry." Oh my god, I can't write this anymore. And after going after Chase and taking her out and having her arrested, we get to learn what all of this was for. What was so important in that M6 that the Mafia and FBI agent, everyone was so eager to get? Was it drugs? Money? Nuclear missile codes? Bank account passwords? Security box keys? If you have guessed anything mentioned, you're a much better writer than the team behind Undercover. It's a T-Mobile sidekick. A T-Mobile sidekick in this briefcase that no one found? Not the car smugglers, not the mechanic, no one knew but Chase and the Mafia? Apparently there's cash in there according to the Wikipedia article, but I don't see any damn money. It looks like there's just some files, but who keeps sensitive files like that on a sidekick? It's only slightly less batshit insane than Own the City's story, but holy crap, the plot holes are the size of the state of Florida. My brain hurts, but it's also so funny. It's sad what happened to Undercover, and it really feels like the last of its kind for the era. A title on many different platforms, both new and old. The last of what I would call the most wanted formula. It was all hindered due to spreading Black Box too thin for its own good. And with Criterion's Hot Pursuit and slightly mad Shift games, Black Box was left in the dust. They tried to mix things up with the run, but as much as the driving felt good, everything else wasn't. I can only imagine how much better and more enjoyable Undercover could be if Black Box was given the time that they were promised. See, the twist to this unfortunate story was that due to the poor performance Pro Street received, less resources were given to the team working on Undercover. Incredibly shitty, but somewhat understandable. Putting more money into something that could possibly fail again isn't the smartest of moves. It's a double-edged sword situation with no real positive outcome. The development cycle was referred to as being torturous. There are builds in the trailer where the game looks better, at least visually. But seeing how the game is, I can only picture the pain and stress those devs went through. There are many glimmers of brilliance with many more annoyances shadowing over. But I still don't see Undercover as awful. I see it as the title of this video, Underappreciated. It was underappreciated by EA as they refused to lift off the pressure or provide extra resources. It was underappreciated by the division of Black Box because where they tried their hardest in some areas, other aspects of the game were left half-baked. And it was underappreciated by the public because while the game can be fun, it was hindered by its bugs and performance. It's an unfortunate but fun send-off to the original Most Wanted formula. A formula that still hasn't been fully recognized today. Ghost Games for years has tried to capture that magic, with two of their games faltering fairly hard. I think they've only just gotten close thanks to Heat, but even when they get close, they still miss the mark. Hopefully this year's new Need for Speed, if there's word that it's still coming this year, though not being made by Ghost and instead by Criterion, will find that spark. Maybe. But as for Undercover, would I recommend it? That's a complicated question. It's not as good as Most Wanted, but it's not as bad as Payback. And because it's been delisted, acquiring a copy can become complicated. There's a modding community that has made the game more stable and better looking. If you can find a copy with the right fixes, then the answer is yes. Play this and bear witness to what would be the underappreciated game, both in development and in commercial, that would lead to Black Box's demise. So where the hell have I been? Don't worry, the computer didn't explode again, but a lot of personal and family matters have arisen, and overall it has been chaotic to the point where I couldn't stream or make videos in the manner I wanted to. Sometimes I would just come home and all I wanted to do was relax with friends and nothing more. On top of everything else, I have a surgery coming up on September 27th, where I'll have to be literally off my feet for 3 weeks straight. I apologize for this, but hopefully you'll stick around. I hope you enjoy the rebranding of the channel. The Pattyman has been a name I've been using since I was 11, and I was contemplating about changing it for some time. I just had to make the move. Also, if you are not aware, I've been partaking in SEX, the Shambles Endurance Cup Series, taking place on Thursdays till September 29th. You can view the races live on my channel or on the Shambles Championship channel. Links will be below. We also have a subreddit. Check it out. I sometimes make things there. Is the Cars franchise the best cinematic experience ever? Possibly, but I do know what they mostly use that franchise for. Which Cars movie is the best? The first. It's a fun romp with some good characters and locations. 3 isn't bad either, but Cruise I found annoying. No, I don't know what you're talking about. What 360/PS3 game with a middling Metacritic score you would approve of making a full-blown remake on? That is a hard question to answer, because a lot of games I've liked and even talked about would make amazing remakes since the source material is there and captivating. Lair, Mercenaries, Amped, in the style of the third game, Stuntman, Steel Battalion. If I were to choose one, however, let's bring back the outfit. Relic had a really interesting combination of RTS strategy, third-person action, and tower defense. Yet it was panned for a multitude of reasons. Reimagined though, with an updated graphics engine, revised characters and plot, and a lean towards alternate historical technology, the outfit would be an awesome remake. What developer would you want to make a game? Fucking Rare, would you please give us another Viva Pinata? Please? Look, the community is trying to make one, and I don't know if it's happening anymore. I just want another Viva Pinata. Do you think games can make an impact in terms of a new standard in storytelling, say how Citizen Kane did for movies? Yes, and no. Yes, because this has already happened. Halo is probably one of the best examples. A grand sci-fi epic with an instantly recognizable character and memorable story, featuring technology so far advanced that other devs had to hire scientists in order to figure out how it worked. Its impact has been well known and ingrained in our culture. But no is also an answer, because while video games have a massive impact in current day pop culture, not every game breaks through past its enthusiasts. The Stanley Parable is an incredible deconstruction of storytelling, parody, and development that is well known in the gaming community, but it won't break through getting a movie or a TV show or have an Easter egg appearance in something that isn't a video game or video game related. An actor or someone of grand influence might mention it, but as far as being as impactful as Halo or Call of Duty, it won't break through that mold. It all depends on whether or not a game makes such monumental breakthroughs that the world at large knows its name.